Everybody loves bonsai, but not the ever-growing number of tools you need to do it. Hi, Evan Pardue here with the amazing bamboo chopstick. It's the most efficient and effective bonsai tool you'll ever use.
What?
Just cut yourself a sliver of bamboo from around, trim it down to the size you need, and you're ready to go. Use it to repot your trees, clean the surface of your soil, crank down your guy wires, and to point at things and show your friends what you like about your bonsai.
Would you look at that?
It works like magic, helping you compress your soil, and it's perfect for finding air pockets. It takes the hard work out of bonsai garden work. Its straight grained fibers and natural shell give you muscle you need when pushing soil around your roots. Acquire now and get your amazing bamboo chopstick.
Wow!
And if you acquire now, you'll also get a confident yes that this is the best tool you'll add to your bonsai tool collection.
Yes!
And if you know somebody with large bamboo growing in their garden, it's practically free.
This is not a real ad, just good advice. Please do not call any numbers, do not contact any websites. Practically forget you ever heard it. Thanks for listening to Little Things for Bonsai People and putting up with their shenanigans. And now on to the episode.
Hello, bonsai friends. This is Evan Pardue of Underhill Bonsai, and welcome to episode 48 of Little Things for Bonsai People. And today I am joined by my co-host, Lesko Viansky, Carmen Lesko Viansky. For some reason, I've gotten into this weird habit of just saying your last name.
Lesko Viansky's here today. Hey, Lesko Viansky.
Let's go.
Like we're a sports team now.
I tried to speech to text your name, and it said, let's go Penske, like a Penske truck.
Oh, let's go Penske. What if it was like, let's go and ski? Like that might be more fun.
Okay, so you've had this last name all your life. You're used to the jokes.
No, I haven't. Only for 13 years.
Oh yeah, that's a good long time though. I forgot.
It is. Feels like forever.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I forgot that you were married into that name. That's a good name, though.
Well, my maiden name was Tracy, and so people would be like, they would like mistake it as my first name, and I got tired of it. So when I got married, I was like, they'll never mess this name up as my first name, which is true, but also nobody can say it. So
yeah, well,
there's that.
You showed them.
I showed them.
Anyway, how are you doing today, Carmen?
Oh, I'm sick. I've been sick since nationals, but hanging in there. So if I sound funny today, sorry everybody, I'm just still sick.
Yeah, well, it happens. You get around a lot of people. There's bound to be something.
Just won't go away.
Yeah. But yeah, before we get too far into our topic, which is a revisit of the critiques we were doing on the previous episode. So we were going through and looking at trees at the 8th National Bonsai Exhibition and just kind of giving our critiques on it, not to take that and say that we're saying anything bad about the trees. This is a good thing to do, is to go through and talk about bonsai, and it'll improve our skills as bonsai practitioners and improve your eye, because in order to view art and critique art, you have to talk about it. Yep. But before we get too far, like I said, we need to thank our amazing patrons over on patreon.com/little things for bonsai people. It's not actually, is it? Oh, I have .com behind Little Things for Bonsai People as well. But if you go over to Patreon, look up Little Things for Bonsai People, it's there. You can head on over there and become a top tier level currently, which is $5 foot long, to get your name shouted out at the beginning of every episode of Little Things. Starting out off the list with Tori Solis, Vicky Oth, Boyd Snellgrove, Ricky Ruins, Joshua Bentley, Snappy Chappers, Joel Jenkins, Justin Knight, Backyard, Bonsai Australia, Greenwich Gardens, Taylor Peacock, Chase Pertweet, Austin Atkins, Karen Coswell, Urun In, Luis Torres, AC Castle, Bonsai Marine, Jazz Potts, or JAS Potts, Chris Bassoon, and Timothy Arsenault. I called him
Tiffany
last time, and he emailed me about it. He emailed me and he was like, hey, I heard that. I was like,
Oh
no. But anyway, thank you guys so much for being Bonsai Best Buds and supporting our show. Like I said, if you go over to Patreon and become a Best Bud, you get your name shouted out. We answer your listener questions. You become part of the Discord. We have a couple of Discord tidbits to throw in today before we start critiquing. But before we get into those, I want to mention also that our editor, Matt O'Donnell, he makes us sound smart. He cleans up the audio and makes it enjoyable to listen to. Go over to mattodonnell.com to fill out a contact form to start your own podcast show or audio engineering project with him. He is a set bassist living in Nashville, Tennessee, and he is an all-around awesome guy. That's my script. And that's ODONNELL.com. So, yeah. And then also go over to UnderhillBonsaiStore.com. That's where I'm currently carrying the Little Things for Bonsai People t-shirts. We have a black shirt and a white shirt with two different designs. Awesome designs. I have a limited number of them. They are guaranteed comfortable because they are printed on comfort color t-shirts. They're excellent. They're $35 and they will ship. And I know I got a couple of questions about international shipping because we have a couple of listeners and in fact, Bonsai Buds in Australia. I'm still sorting that out. I will get your shirts out to you as soon as I can, but I'm sure it's not that big of an issue. I've just been backed up. And so let's hit a few things that were mentioned in the Discord. There's a couple of listener questions really quick. You got a second for that, Carmen?
I do, as a matter of fact.
There's one in here for you, but there's one for me first.
I just totally missed these. I'm going to open Discord now and look at it again.
No, don't take this one too seriously. But mine is I mentioned True Grow in another episode. I was talking to Randy Bennett back in the feature where we had him. We were talking about bald cypresses, and we were talking about soil aggregates and different types that we use. And one of the things that we're running at Underhill Bonsai is a soil aggregate. So it's called True Grow. It's harvested in Texas, and I know some people are trying to Google it and go find it and stuff. If they've heard me talking about it, it's more of a commercially ready product, and they don't really put it out there. So it's kind of one of those things where you have to have a wholesaler's account, and then you have to have a truck to load it up, or have it delivered by freight or hauler or whatever you want to do. So it's good stuff, and some people have told me it's a good haydite replacement. As far as I know, it's only available in Underhill Bonsai Professional Soil Mix. So if you buy our soil, you can see it in person. It's a fine aggregate. I still think Akadama's better. And because it doesn't really scale, it doesn't break down. But the reason why we had used it originally in our soil mix is because it was kind of Doug's thought child to come up with this recipe and introduce this particle because it's used in rooftop gardens and also tight, like urban planting spaces because of its water holding capacity and nutrient holding capacity. I think me and you've had this conversation before, Carmen, about this soil
Probably.
in the past. It's fine. It holds a lot of water and it does not let go. So it's great for stuff that we grow here. But I fear that it might hold a little too much water for stuff like Japanese maples and azaleas because they don't like to be super wet all the time. And but the Japanese black pines fare with it okay. But I still would say if we're not using it for a general mix and you want to move on to something a little bit more adjusted, we've had a couple of soil conversations in the past, and we might break into another soil conversation episode later on. We've got plenty of episodes coming up, so it's inevitably going to happen. So I would just say, go with what you feel like you need, and then mix soils. And I guarantee you, when you start mixing your own soils, you'll up your game.
Yeah, I think the important thing to remember is that anytime you make a change in your soil, you're going to have to make an adjustment on how you water. And so there's going to be some kind of adjustment period for both you and your tree. So just, go slow with it and pay attention. But a lot of it, I think, has to do with watering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, watering is, it's going to be regional. It's going to be, we did a whole episode on watering not too long ago. So go back and listen to that one. That one's super exciting. It sounds exciting as it sounds. It's actually got some good stuff. We let Carmen nerd out for a little while, but
I keep meaning to pull out my old books and actually put together a science episode and be a real nerd about it.
Yeah.
So
We
that's
can
coming up.
even more in depth.
Even more nerdy. Woo!
But another comment that I saw in the Discord, you're talking about some things that were being worked on the gardens, and I saw somebody mention, "Oh, what's everybody working on today?" And then you said, "I up potted this beauty." So I wanted to ask you about your garden cat plantings. How are those going?
They're going pretty well. Vivian has forgiven me on you know, giving her, her insecticide, her flea medicine, and she's back to following me around and being adorable.
Yeah.
She seems to like the larger pot.
I mean, at least you're doing a preventative treatment
Right.
on
Yeah.
her bugs. Yeah.
It's really, really important to be proactive.
Yeah.
Especially this time of year. You want to get ahead of the problem.
Yeah, especially on planted kitty cats.
Oh, totally. Yeah, and be sure you position your pots in the sun. You'll have a lot better success with your cats and your pots if you put them in the sun.
Sunbathing will be optimal.
Oh yeah, primo stuff here.
But yeah, so those were a couple of things. If you want to hear more listener questions, Bonsai Best Buds, don't be shy. Drop some stuff in there. Just know that some things you guys say, if I think it's funny or if I think it's entertaining enough, don't be surprised if I say something that I quote from the Best Buds. There's some great conversation in Discord going on. But yeah, and if you want to shoot me an email, if you don't want to be a Best Bud and you just want to hear a question, you can go over to your email and shoot me an email at evan@underhillbonsai.com, or you can go to Instagram and go to the messages, the DMs, slip into my DMs and drop me a bonsai question. I love that kind of stuff. But anyway, so we're going to get back into critiquing trees, but this was a disclaimer I wanted to say before we started going on the last episode. Like I said, this is just constructive criticism. We are not at all saying that these are bad trees. We're not at all praising these trees for things, saying like, oh, this one should have been best in show, or this was, so-and-so's tree, so we have to be careful. Like, this is purely for the design and aesthetics and teaching bonsai, like the art of bonsai, viewing bonsai. This will improve our listeners' thoughts and eyes for bonsai is what we're trying to do here, is we're trying to get that point across.
Mm-hmm.
So 1 second.
It's not personal, it's just business.
Can you hear Caitlin playing Skyrim in the background?
I cannot.
Okay, good. All right, so let's get back into it. And also to mention, we did have Mike on the previous one. That was a lot of fun, but Mike is currently traveling with Laurent right now. He's very busy. So y'all just cut him some slack.
No.
But yeah, I wanted to. So these images of these trees, like before, they will be over on the Instagram page for Little Things for Bonsai People. They're going to be in order of how we're going to critique them. And the first one is going to be the tall, skinny juniper. That's a juniper, correct?
Yes.
Is that the Goshen species juniper? The
femina? I think
femina.
So. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I think so. It's definitely a needle juniper.
That's a needle juniper of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
And the femina juniper, for those who don't know, that's John Naka's preferred Goshen species. But needle juniper, if you look really close to this tree, you'll see, I mean, they call it needle for a reason. It doesn't really get that compact little scaly look or scale type foliage that you see on most junipers. It looks forever juvenile.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, I can go ahead and kind of give my initial first impressions of this, and then I'll pass it back to you. I remember this is one that me and you got stuck on for a while, because we kind of passed by it a few times, but it really took it was on an end cap, so it was kind of hard to kind of zero in on it because it didn't have any other trees to kind of pull you towards it. But if you spent time with this tree in its area, it felt, the end cap made it feel even more isolated, which I think is very appropriate for this design, because the landscape pot, the way that it's showing all that extra negative space, gives you the isolation feel that I think the artist was going for here with it. Now the ratios are something to be a little bit like there's some consideration in how wide the crown is, but at the same time, so and this was a reference I saw like Michael posted something earlier. Michael Hagedorn posted something earlier. He did something about what is the crown, what is the top of the tree, what is the kind
Mm-hmm.
of thing. And I think this tree kind of gives us that those like where is what do you call the top of this tree?
Right.
Um, which is an excellent discussion because I did a bonsai word of the day a little while back. And I was like, oh, it's it's all relative. But yeah, the crown of this is I think it's very wide, and then when it comes
Mm-hmm.
out, it does fill in. It does like the drip line does kind of hit to where almost to where the edges of this landscape container is. So it really takes up that space up
Yeah.
there. And would you call this like a cloud style for its pads?
I'm not, yeah, I mean the pads are very cloud-like. I don't know what I would actually call this style
And
overall,
that's what
but
was fun looking at it is we didn't have a defined style in mind. And I think that's one of the better things about bonsai is if you can't approach this and say, oh, that's a formal upright, that's a slanting, or that, this is a literati, because it's a little bit of all those things.
yeah.
Um, because the crown is not exactly over the base,
Hmm.
but it's also kind of unstable. But also the deadwood is not shown in a way that's proper to Japanese bonsai because you're supposed to be able to see the live vein on either side of the shari, which is
I think as long
typical.
as you see it on one side going into the ground, you're good. But it's like, yeah, this one, there's almost that little spot where you almost don't see it.
Mm-hmm. And that's perspective too, the way the
Hmm.
picture was
Yeah,
shot.
the picture's not great.
But the deadwood though is pretty prominent in comparison to the size. And one of the things I kind of fear for this tree is that if someone's looking at this and they're kind of like, oh, you know what that is? That's a tanuki. And I would be like,
Mm-hmm.
no, it isn't, but it could be that if you really, but if you looked at this tree up close, it was not.
Right.
So it kind of has that borderline back and forth between that. It's kind of playing around with that. I think the one of the only things that's kind of weird to me about this design, because I love the design, I love the space, I love the isolation feel. The portion of the crown's a little off to me. I feel like it could be a little narrower, but then
Hmm.
the deadwood that comes off the top is very
Yeah.
very tall. I like that, and then you got this, but then you have this really skinny deadwood that comes from underneath that, like basically
Mm-hmm.
the foliage
Yeah.
mats. That's very elegant and very beautiful. And I don't feel like those match very well.
Hmm.
If there was more deadwood pieces coming down in various places, and then that top had some elements suggesting that that would match the bottom, I think that would be very cool.
Hmm.
But yeah, overall, stand, pots, the way it's presented, I think it has this classical yet its own style of classical approach. So yeah.
Yeah, I think with this tree, I feel conflicted about it because not in a bad way, just because I feel like when I've learned about skinny trunk trees, usually you want really, you want a foliage mass to match that. But in this case, you have a really skinny trunk and a really, really wide canopy of the whole tree. But because it's in that big, long pot with all of that negative space, it works. And so this is one of those cases where the pot balances out the tree. If this was in a little bunjin pot, it wouldn't work. You would have to severely reduce the foliage mass. But because it's in that landscape tray, it works. And the pot itself isn't super, it's not deep, it's not heavy, it's a dark color, but that gives it stability. And the stand, again, it's not too clunky, it's not too heavy. Um, I think the pads and the negative space on this are really beautiful. It's a great example of how to use negative space to give you the shape of a tree. Um, and the directionality is, very obvious and very lovely. And yeah, the thing that I almost want to see a little bit more of the live vein because
Mm-hmm.
the deadwood feels very straight, but at the same time, that's kind of the point of this tree is to have that super straight trunk, but then this really gorgeous canopy. So I don't know that I would change very much about it at all. This was probably one of my favorite trees in the show. And I'm not just saying that because I know who did it, but
Like we said, disclaimer, we're not picking favorites
um,
here.
no, but I do just think this is a really beautiful tree, and a really classical look.
Yeah.
Just lovely.
Um, so I think maybe one of the things that could kind of challenge this tree a little bit is if that, like challenging like the design a little
Mhm.
bit is so you have that first branch that is the heaviest piece that comes down.
Yeah.
I think, and I was kind of imagining this and kind of covering up pieces with my hand. What
Hmm.
if that branch wasn't there? Do you think that?
I think you would lose the age of the tree. I think having that really low big branch that gives it that amount of weight makes it look old, and if you removed it, it would be too simplistic.
Okay.
Um, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah. And I could see
Something
that.
I think would be fun with this is to do so Michael Hagedorn does this exercise with his students in his seasonal classes, which are all the dates are posted if anybody wants to sign up. Um,
We can talk
plug.
more about that
Uh,
towards the end.
yeah, but one of the exercises we do is we have photocopies of trees out of the Kokofu books or whatever, black and white copies, and our challenge is to use whiteout to delete, something to make the tree a better fit for its pot or whatever. But what I would love to play with this tree is like redesign it. Like, so imagine it was in a bunjin pot and then reduce the foliage mass to see if you can make it work as a bunjin. That way you could, experiment with design on it, even though I don't think I would do that. I love it how it is, but just to play with the concept of the skinny trunk, and what you usually do with a skinny trunk, it would just be a fun thing to do.
So if you take a picture of your tree and you do a photocopy of it and you print it out, you're not going to
Mhm.
harm your tree by doing that. You're going to have the opportunity to draw on, erase, white out. You can even get yourself some construction paper and cut out shapes of bonsai pots and put it over it. Whatever you want. Have fun with it.
Mhm.
Make 10 photocopies of your tree and or of this tree or any trees that you see online and play around with that because there's endless possibilities of what you can do with these trees. I mean, just because they're designed doesn't mean that's the finished result because like we've said in other episodes when we're a little bit more philosophical, bonsai is impermanent and it has to change
Mhm.
because it's constantly growing.
Right.
So
Yeah, the other thing, I just a lot of times will take a picture on my phone and then, make a copy of it and then edit it right there on my phone, especially if somebody asks me, okay, well, what should I do with this tree?
mhm.
Sometimes I'll just, scribble on it and send them a picture back and be like, what about this? And sometimes it helps and sometimes it looks like I scribbled on a picture.
Yeah. And that's kind of the thing is like some of our listeners are not as tech savvy with
Mm-hmm.
this, but yeah, you could just real time take this picture or a picture of a tree you have, and then on the iPhone, I know it has the feature called markup,
Yeah,
and,
go to
and
markup.
then and then you go there, you get the different style drawing things on there, and you can go in there and just
Mm-hmm.
I like using it to erase sections of a trunk and then draw branches
Mm-hmm.
on and then give myself like especially for deciduous, like give myself like an expected leafless stage
Yeah.
and then draw the foliage on and kind of flicker back and forth between the photos to be like leaves naked, like
Mm-hmm.
just to kind of see, just to play around. So
Right.
so that sounds weird. Leaves naked.
I
Don't
wasn't going to say anything, but
don't do that. You should you
we're
should
talking
not leave
about
your house like
trees
that.
here,
Yeah,
people.
yeah, we're talking about bonsai. So so yeah, the next tree that I would like to talk about, and here's the thing too, is like if you like if you guys are Patreons and you're in our Discord, you can actually take these pictures of these trees and we can make like a separate thread, and you guys
Mm.
can like
Mhm.
draw on these images and give us feedback of what you guys think for redesigns. I think that would be really fun too.
Yeah.
Super accessible. We literally have supercomputers in our hands. I mean, it's totally doable. So, but the next tree I want to talk about is this larch.
Hmm.
It's like in an egg, is what you kind of.
Yeah, it's in like like a bowl vase thing. It's like erupting from this circular
It's a
ball.
ball, and it looks like someone took like the ceramic and peeled it back, like not even like a banana. It's like peeled back this.
Can you imagine a bonsai coming out of a banana peel pot? Oh my God.
A
Somebody make me a banana peel pot.
crescent pot that is basically a banana.
I want a banana peel pot.
It's possible too. I
I will
mean,
pay you very little money, but I will give you lots of notoriety.
she will pay you in whatever apprentices make, which
I'll
is
pay you in shout outs on on this podcast.
yes.
When I make money, I'll pay you. Sorry, continue.
No, you can get like dwarf banana trees as like
Except
an
you know that
accent.
banana trees, they're not really trees though. They're herbaceous.
Yeah. So you use that as your kusamono, and then you get
Oh
yourself
yeah.
like a
Banana
Velvet
tree.
Underground
Ooh.
album cover bonsai.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh man, too many ideas.
yeah, I went to the Andy Warhol Museum while I was passing through Pittsburgh, and there was a whole Velvet Underground display area where they had the cover, because Andy Warhol did that cover. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not.
That was his thing, and then part of it was like an interactive cover, so you could peel
Ooh.
the peel off of it, and it was a pink banana underneath. I love Andy Warhol. He was such a quirky artist. But yeah, this larch. Speaking of quirky, this larch has a couple of things. I think I don't. I'm just gonna take a shot in the dark here, but it's not. I don't think it's too far. But I think this has something to do with like Nick Lynn's, or obviously an Nick Lynn's influence. Nick Lynn's passed not too long ago. I think it was a few years back.
It was last year, the year before. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
So
recently.
there's been a lot of homage towards his designs. He was very forward thinking, just use abstraction in your bonsai, just like figures and sculptures. And this tree shouts like a Nick Lynn's approach, but they're trying to refine it in a classical setting. Fun fact too is that we didn't really get a picture of this, but down inside the pot, if you looked up and down in, next to the deadwood of the trunk, there was a face, like a ceramic face.
I think I got a picture of a ceramic face that was in another one as well. So I'll see if I can find that. Maybe we can post it.
Fun fact, that was in the Australian pine clump.
Oh, you're right.
And that was Rob Kempinski, and he told me that he basically did that as a reflection of Nick Flintz's work. So that's why I'm kind of thinking, because he was telling me about this tree, and he was like, "Oh, he beat me to it. He put a face in there already." I was like, "Well, did
Nick Lenz make those?"
I think.
Okay,
maybe?
or he just put something like that in there. We should talk about that Australian pine. That was beautiful.
Well, I do have Rob Kempinski on the roster to talk to him soon. So nice. that was his pine. So we'll talk about it because it was very interesting.
It was.
But yeah, I love. Okay, so here's the thing with this tree. I love the egg thing that it's coming out of, the larch, and that's another Nick Lynn's thing. He was very well known for using larch a lot. And so I love the what's going on here. The stand, because we're in a formal classical style show, tells us that it wants to be that, because you have this wire stand underneath, which gives it this surrealistic like juxtaposition to it, almost
like it's floating.
Yeah, like it's pasted there in a weird way on the stand. The stand could be something, maybe even if it was like a welded looking metal stand that looked like a classical stand. I think that would be better if you could see rust or weld joints on in there. I think that would kind of elevate this display. And then the accent is just so mundane for a kusamono. I love
the accent on this one.
It's a beautiful kusamono. It's very well put together, but I feel like it doesn't, like the tree is saying one thing, like it's trying to communicate this drama and this abstraction, and then the kusamono is like very straightforward, like beautifully put together, very classical, but very
classical.
But also
zooming in on exactly what it is.
Yeah, it looks like
it's mondo grass and seleginella, and there's something else I don't know what.
that stuff on the bottom, the fern looking stuff, that's
Yeah, that's a Selaginella.
yeah, that runs wild at the bonsai nursery. We had one tree
Mhm.
coming with it, and now it's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, that other stuff poking out of there, that's some. It looks like
Some mondo grass, but then I
yeah,
don't know what
that's
the broadleaf is. I
yeah.
can't tell from here.
I bet this looks really good whenever the mondo grass is flowering, and I bet you this other
Hmm.
thing flowers too.
Yeah, probably.
So, but I like it. Maybe the larch could be a little less flat and plain
I
and give
think
us
part
more
of
dimension.
I think part of it is the photograph angle, but I remember seeing it there too and feeling like it was a little bit straight. And I was wondering if maybe the angle that they have the pot at is a little bit off because it seems to me that if you changed where the front of that tree was just a smidge, um, I'm trying to think, is it clockwise? Yeah, if you moved clockwise on the tree, like 10 degrees
Mm,
or so,
mhm.
you could see a little bit more of the deadwood and a little bit more of the movement. So I think, I don't know if it was placed not quite with the front as the front, or if maybe we just need to change the potting angle a little bit. But I think you would have a little bit more of a dynamic tree with that. And then I I love the idea of this one, and I like how it's trying to float, but I feel like the piece of wire is too heavy, so either the wire has to change or the stand has to change. And I'm not sure which. There's like this one I feel is really innovative and almost there, but it needs a, like you were saying, just a little bit more of a nudge to get there. There's something that's not quite there yet. I also think this is one that would benefit from twice the amount of space because right now the kusamono is
Hmm.
right under that branch, and if you moved that a foot away or even more, you would have more space. The kusamono wouldn't feel so big, and I think the whole thing would just benefit from having a wider display area.
Yeah,
That was one thing I noticed at this show. A lot of trees were really kind of squished up next to each other.
yeah. I was going to mention that too. It's like
Mm-hmm.
I think there was somewhere around 300
Yeah, if you got rid of
and
10% of the trees and gave everything a little bit more space, it would have taken things up a notch, I think.
yeah, especially for heavy directional trees like this.
Right, for sure.
Because I mean, it feels like it could throw the viewer's eye very far. So
Mm-hmm.
it does overreach the Kusamono, I agree. And then maybe
Yeah.
there could be something like a 3 point that would draw it more together as
Mm-hmm.
well to help it like the
I think you're
scroll.
right about the accent. Maybe something a little bit more dynamic, or
Hmm.
even if it was a plant, something a little bit more subtle.
Something either super minimalistic,
Mm-hmm.
like a mound of moss with
Yeah, exactly.
like a rock embedded in it, like it's like
Mm-hmm.
a little crater pointing towards the tree,
Mm-hmm.
or not a crater, a boulder, it's the opposite. Or
Mm-hmm. A little figure or some kind of
oh
little art piece would be
yeah,
neat.
something like when Nick Linsel, like he had that one tree that had like a tank wrecked into a tree in a
Mm-hmm.
forest.
That was
Something,
fun.
yeah, something fun, something whimsical. Yeah. And I think also something exotic because maybe I don't know, because the larch versus the kusamono, the plants in this kusamono are more of your garden center species, like you can
Yeah,
find
they're
them
not
anywhere.
natives.
They're not natives and they're not also like super exotic. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I've saw a lot of pictures, but
Mm-hmm.
something I've never really seen is if we want to do like a cantilever kind of look, wouldn't it be fun if there was like a cantilever display, like the whole thing, and then on the Kusamono was kind of like floating as well, and it had the hanging pitcher plants?
Oh my gosh, we're doing that.
Wouldn't that be gnarly?
TM,
Like,
TM, 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 TM.
yeah, just in the future, when you guys are trying to do stuff, don't steal my idea. I mean, Carmen's probably gonna run with it better than I am. Uh,
No, I love
could,
that idea. That's great.
and we have them at our nursery, so I don't know how like likely the survival of that Kusamono would be if the way that I'm imagining it, but that would be fun. That's
You can
something,
do it. I
yeah,
mean, one of
yeah.
the tropical pictures that with the hanging. Yeah, totally. You should do it.
And if I were to do something like that, kind of like this larch, we would do something a little out of the box, a little, you know, unordinary.
Mm-hmm.
So and just one more thing about the container. It's a beautiful container, but I feel like there should be more exposure to. I want to see the soil line, but you
Yeah.
also were saying that the angle you took it at was a little weird. But even
Could be the
though,
angle, yeah. Or you could just take a hammer to that side and like
yeah, there you go,
make it wider and it would
open
be
it
a little
up.
bit better because that's a really rugged tree and that's a really glossy, smooth.
It was very shiny, and I
Yeah.
was almost saying like just because it's a deciduous conifer doesn't mean that we can't use glazed containers. I mean, every once in a while,
Hmm.
I'll use a bald cypress with a glazed container, but it's not at all glossy. It's glazed with a
Yeah.
subtle, like
Yeah.
like one of my favorite things to do with deciduous conifers with bald cypresses is have like an ash glaze that has that drippy,
Mm-hmm.
murky kind of weird look to it.
Yeah.
That's always fun, but it matte. They should be matte. So
Yeah.
but overall, uh, awesome tree, cool
This is a fun
concept.
tree.
Yeah, and a nod. I'm assuming a nod to Nick. So,
Hmm.
so the next tree is a white cedar,
Hmm.
and if you look closely at the Kosamono, oh, that's tongue fern. I thought there was pictures in there.
Mm. I know I did too at first, and then I was like, oh wait, no, that's a fern.
Yeah, the tongue ferns, that's something that I've been trying to track down. I can't seem to find them anywhere. I
Hmm.
really love tongue fern as a Kusamono. I think they're so awesome. They have good texture. They have interesting shapes. They drape and they run in all kinds of different ways that once they get older, they get that look and they mound up. I mean, that's one of the things that immediately, and I mean, it's
Oh,
also
there
the,
is a picture in there. I'm zooming in on it. There's a little picture there in the back.
you sure that's a picture or is that the backside of the fern leaf?
I think it's a picture, but maybe it is a fern. I don't know.
Maybe, but yeah, like we can't see it, but well, that could be one of those hanging pictures. It almost has that silhouette. Maybe
Hmm.
we're not too off, but you know, um, but yeah, that this tree here, the directionality, the placement, it's also everything was a little close, so this could be a little bit further from the Kosamono,
Yeah.
but this tree is like we were kind of going through the pictures earlier. It was like, which ones are we gonna look at? You were like that white cedar. Let's talk about that because
Hmm.
it's near perfect.
It's really
It's
beautiful.
very, very nicely done. I have only a few things, but the things that really knock it out of the park for me this one is the Kusamono and the
Hmm.
stand choice. I
Hmm.
wish was not rectangle because the stand's very rectangle,
Mm.
but the stand that it's on, oh God, if I could afford to
It's a
have that
beautiful
stand in my
stand.
collection, yeah, you could put any tree on that stand. It just will look, it'll
Hmm.
pop. Um, and then we go up into the tree and there's a lot of things, but since you're a little bit more conifer heavy than I am, I want to kind of hear what you have to say before I kind of like clunk around with the concept of how this was built.
Sure. Yeah, I really love white cedars because they're native in the Midwest where I'm from. Um, and I've been seeing a lot more of them as bonsai lately, or in the the last 10 years or so. And I think they make really interesting yamadori because you can collect them out of bogs and off of rock cliffs, rock outcroppings, and
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of things like that. And you've got some really cool deadwood and movement in these trees. And I think this one's really well done. It's very dense. You can still see the negative space between the pads, but he left it a little bit shaggy. So you can really kind of get that wild feeling. I would be
Mm-hmm.
curious to see it pinched a little bit more, but on the other hand, I like the little bit of shagginess because that's what they do in nature. Um, so I could go either way on that. I think the deadwood is very nice. Um, you can see the live vein really well. There's good movement in the trunk and in the deadwood. And I think what really puts this one over the top for me is the pot, because the pot is like, it's almost too small, but it's not. And then it's got
Mm.
those nice little cloud feet. It's like you see a lot of junipers in pots like this where the pot is heavy and so it gives you that weight, but then it almost appears like it's floating because it has those little feet. It's just a very refined look, and to see a tree that you often see in the wild is something really gnarly and rugged and kind of not always this lush. To see it this pristine and this well presented is just really beautiful. And I do love the kusamono with it, the little bits of red in there that kind of pick up the pot in the trunk.
Yes.
I think it's a nice combination overall. I think it's just a lovely, lovely composition.
The the one thing that I kind of noticed, because you were talking about how the pot feels like it is too small, but and then at the
Mhm.
same time, the way that it's put
It's like
together.
it's almost too small, but it's not. Any smaller would be too small, but
Mhm.
too much bigger would be too clunky. So it's right there.
Yeah.
It's that
So
tension that it creates.
something that, yeah, tension's a really great example for how this feels,
Yeah.
because of the off balance kilter a little bit, but yet balanced, because of the dead wood kind of brings us back. But one of the things that I mentioned in the previous episode about presenting, I mentioned that little tidbit about I had the art teacher that helped me kind of conceptualize presentation of even like
Hmm.
even if it's like a just a basic piece of outsider art.
Hmm.
um you could, if you clean it up and present it, people are going to appreciate it for what it is.
Yep.
So I feel like this tree has that. There's a
Yeah.
couple of things that I see in it that I'm like, I'm a little iffy on, but the way
Hmm.
that the stand is immaculate, it's polished, it's scratch free, it's, I mean, it is, you can tell by the way that this thing is constructed, this is a very, very nice stand.
Hmm.
um Hand built, handmade, everything. The pot is oiled up and there's no water stains, there's no, it's obviously not a cheap piece of pottery, it's
Hmm.
Japanese. The kusamono looks nice and clean. Even the little bamboo shoots, they look like they have some age to them that's underneath the kusamono.
Hmm.
But even that has it has enough wabi sabi but polish
Hmm.
at the same time. It's a weird thing to kind of say, because the shagginess of the tree is simplifying the wabi sabi and the mochikome of the tree.
Hmm.
So the way that you talk about, the way you're like, I wish it was pinched a little bit. For me, it's like this. It's like you get a haircut, and you'll have your haircut for the first couple of like the first
Mm.
week, and
Yeah, that's a little off.
you can see the hard lines where the scissors
Mhm.
cut your hair. I get a fade sometimes, so you can see kind of the levels of the shade of my hair.
Yeah,
But then the week after, when it grows a little bit, then it has a little bit more of a grown in feel, and it actually feels
right.
like it's supposed to. And that's the kind of thing. It's and that goes kind of go to the thing is like being a bonsai artist. You're like a bonsai tree barber. In a way, it kind of feels like that with these. Like if this was laid out perfectly,
Hmm.
it would take it to like an artificial
Yeah,
feel that I wouldn't
right.
like,
Yep.
you know. And then it would
Agreed.
bring out a couple of flaws in it that I see personally, but doesn't make it a lesser bonsai. I mean, this is amazing.
Hmm.
I heard some people walking around kind of looking at trees being like, oh, well, maybe if this was shorter, or maybe if this trunk wasn't so straight. And then I hear this other person walk up and say, well, I wouldn't mind it in my bonsai collection. Hear
Yeah.
that. But there's still things to look at. So there's the few crucial things I have to say. And I think we're coming back to the pot. I think the stand could have been
Hmm.
a little bit smaller.
Yep.
Same
Agreed.
stand. I think if this stand could be shrunk, which is not possible
By
because
like
it's
an inch.
exactly because the
Yep.
frame, you could see the bevel on the stand. That bevel should either encase your tree or it should encase the pot if your tree has a heavily pronounced movement like this tree does. That's not a hard and fast. Oh, okay. I thought I
Hmm.
stopped recording. It's not a hard and fast rule, but it's just a aesthetic. It's a
Hmm.
Japanese aesthetic thing. And then the deadwood has that big hole that you can see the backdrop through it.
Hmm.
That's awesome, but at the same time, it does kind of take away the stability of the tree. And part of me feels like the tree is leaning just a little too much. But I mean, also it's shaggy. It has that kind of hanging on the thread kind of look. That's kind of the
Hmm.
intention. As we come up the tree, like you said, the live vein dances with that deadwood up in there. It's beautiful. Right under that canopy on that first curve, you can see it where that live vein wraps around.
Yeah.
Um, and my last kind of thing that I'll take away from this tree is that the crown is a little too pointy.
Mm.
That's how it
Yeah.
builds a good, it has a good steep fall off. Like the directionality is very nice and sharp. But I feel like if it
Yeah.
was taken down, like if you hold your finger
Yeah. I was just
over
doing that. If you hold it just a smidge, make
just
a little bit more rounded.
just come down just a little bit, it would
Yeah,
make
that'd be nice.
it would make the directionality more subtle and
Hmm.
not as pitched. So,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah,
but
I think. Oh, go ahead.
no, I'm just saying, but that doesn't mean that this is a bad tree. This is a
Yeah.
very fine tree. This is like a magazine cover worthy tree here. So,
Yeah, I think with like if you were to pinch it just a smidge, you might be able to reduce that crown just a like the shape might be there. It might just be a little too like the long bits from the shagginess sticking up. But yeah, I agree. It's a little bit pointy. Um, but the hole in the trunk doesn't bother me because there's so much on the left side of that hole that like if
mhm.
there wasn't much over there, I would feel like it was really unbalanced. But because there's almost more width of deadwood and trunk over there, it doesn't bother me. But I can see what you're saying with how a hole in the base there could make it feel a little bit more unstable.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm
like,
not saying you're wrong either. I'm just,
no, no,
it's
no,
just
no.
opinion.
No, like we were saying, these are all opinions.
You're wrong.
This is all subjective. So so but yeah, I mean, closing remark on this tree overall, I mean, I feel like the artist wanted us to believe that he just lifted this tree from his bonsai bench in his
Hmm.
garden and then mossed it.
You
But
probably did.
and maybe he did. You know,
I mean,
some
in that in a good way.
yeah.
It's just so polished on the bench all the time. Sorry, go ahead.
No, no, no. And sometimes people's trees have that little bit extra polish that they need
Hmm.
to go into a show. But I do appreciate how it has that appearance of just being lifted from the bonsai garden and then cleaned up and mossed. But
Hmm.
I guarantee you this took a long time to even
Oh
get it to
God, this
look
took
like this.
ages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To make it look this clean.
Hmm.
So but yeah, next tree, if you have anything else to say.
No more. I am done.
Um speak now or forever hold your peace on this tree.
No.
Okay. Um no.
No.
But so the next tree is a Chinese elm.
Hmm.
This one has a lovely 3-point display and had plenty of room, unlike some of the other
It
trees that we
did.
were
This
looking
one
at.
almost had too much room.
I think it was pretty appropriate because so this is one of the things with 3-point displays. Nothing, and it's just like making a forest planting. Nothing should have the same exact distance from each other.
Hmm.
So that's done pretty well here.
Yeah.
Now, did we find out what that kusamono is?
I didn't ask, but hold on, I'm sending you a close up of the deadwood.
Okay.
I didn't ask, but I think that we came to it being an impomia, so it's like a sweet potato vine.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
It has the growth habit of a sweet potato vine, but it has like the leaf is very unique. So I
Yeah, it's
think
like a cut leaf. I'm gonna Google and see if I can find a cut leaf variety of the
yeah,
it's really interesting.
it was a very good kusamono. It has a lot of character, and the kusamono feels like it. If you had a good zoom in on that kusamono, you could almost say like it could have been displayed almost by itself in like a kusamono show because it just has
Hmm.
that character. But my opinion on the way that this is something I mentioned about another tree earlier is that uh, the shape. So this is like display 101. This is what I've learned. The pot that the bonsai is in and the kusamono is in should be different styles.
Hmm.
This one they have two round ones. So, um, and then also your kusamono and your bonsai should also have their own stands that are variants. So that's I mean there was a lot of bonsai on display with their accents and they all had the variants and stands and stuff. That's all, I think even with the show like there might have been one tree that wasn't on a stand, which I felt to be a little awkward. But everything had a stand and the kusamonos all had stand. That's kind of a general rule that we're supposed to follow when we display trees, and that's a formal. And then the scroll on this is actually very well proportionate. It's a I learned a little bit of about bonsai scroll displays. There's I wish I could remember her name. you might know her, but she specializes in um like Orientals display
Mm,
pieces, like stuff that would go in your tokonome that
hmm
wasn't bonsai, like family keepsakes, scrolls, fine pottery, stuff like that. And the scroll sizes were different. There's a name for this size. I'll have to research it. I'm sure somebody in the Discord of our best buds will probably be like, "Oh, this is what you were trying to say." And if you do, that's great. We'll say it again. But this display features a little frog sitting on a branch. I think that's
hmm
adorable. Um, but this is a proper display scroll size. I actually had to get some custom made pieces for some cutouts. So if you look at the scroll really close, there's a little threads that hold the actual painting in the scroll hanger. And that can be changed out. So if you get yourself a proper scroll, like the actual, I wish I knew the name, but and then you can get the inserts and you can change
hmm
this out. And it makes it really fun because you can show the season.
hmm
Um, so overall, I love what's going on here. And the Chinese elm, I've seen a couple of semi-cascade Chinese elms. My good friend Dawn Ketting has one in her own collection as well. It's very similar to this tree. Um, Hers is more full. She's got a much bigger branch. She comes down. It's basically a full cascade. And there's another thing too. It's semi because the entire foliage mass is still above that rim of that
hmm
pot. It's breaking the trunk line, and the trunk line and the foliage mass is breaking the rim, but it's not full. So the stand is a little bit of a full cascade looking stand, but not nearly as tall. So yeah, and as I inspect this tree closer, I was mentioning this to you, Carmen. We were looking it over. I was like, this is reminiscent of something that I've seen Harry Harrington do when he carves
Mm,
out a stump. I've seen him do this on a big English elm where he'll get that big blunt chop and he carves it out and it looks like a little mouth. And you sent me a close up. We're gonna have when you guys look at this on the Instagram, you'll see this elm, and then you'll see the picture that's gonna be next. But I don't think it's carved. This looks like it rotted out. If you look at the deadwood close,
yeah, I don't think this was carved. I think this was
this
a
is a natural
natural.
occurrence.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
it's very, very uniquely approached.
hmm
So yeah, just different pot for the Kusamono. I think the Kusamono the oh god, I think the Kusamono shined, and I think that was probably maybe the artist was like, "This is the best Kusamono right now. I like this a lot. You know what? This doesn't look too bad." The yellows of the Kusamono don't directly match the tree either, so it's okay. It's a great Kusamono, but I feel like it could have been a little bit different of a choice there. And then the padding on this tree is not very deciduous. It's a little bit more conifer shaped. I would have
hmm
loved to see more deciduous, wavier branches coming out longer in longer sections, and also more uplift.
hmm Yeah, I think this is a really cool tree, and I really love the deadwood feature on it. And I think that as far as the pads on it go, that it needs a little bit more growth up top, a rounder crown to match, the thickness of the trunk there, and then just a little bit more pad development. So give it like, 5 more years and just kind of round out those pads, maybe extend the lower pad a little bit. Because it doesn't really feel in proportion to the trunk, or maybe the shape is off. But I agree with, I love the tree, I love the Kusamono, but I don't know that they go together. I think the Kusamono might be too big for this display.
Mm-hmm.
So something a little bit smaller, more subtle, because I feel like this one kind of takes away from the tree and the scroll, which are very clean and orderly, and the Kusamono is a little bit more wild. But I love the idea of using sweet potato vine. I love the pot it's in. Just maybe not all together. I think the scroll is really fun. You don't see a lot of frogs on scrolls, so I really liked that a lot. And we didn't really see, there were some scrolls, but not a whole ton. So it was nice to see a very traditional scroll.
Yeah.
Yep.
I like little fun animals you don't see on scrolls. Like I got one for myself, and I think this is perfect because it would do like the Cajun, the bald cypress display. And I found one with a shrimp on it,
Ooh,
and
that'll be fun.
it's just a shrimp,
Yep.
and he's just at the bottom. And I'm just like, oh, I I never imagined I could find this. I had to buy it. So,
Yeah.
but like little frogs like this or mice, I've seen mice. Oh my
I've
God.
seen mice. They're
I love the
so
mice
cute.
ones. I think
Hmm.
there might have been a mouse one at this show.
I think there
Um,
might have been. Yeah.
but as we play around more with it, because we do have people who are starting to appreciate the Kosomono aspect and the scroll aspect more and get it together. Um, and I hope to see more and more playful, creative displays like this. But yeah, the Kosomonos, the size, even the size of the leaf, Chinese
Hmm.
elm is like it's got these little tiny, like almost rice size
Yeah.
kind of
It's so
leaves
tiny and
sometimes,
refined. Yeah.
and you got this big, clunky, yet kind of just like sprawling Kusamono that and for a semi cascade, maybe the Kusamono could have been like maybe a jasmine, like the
Mm.
Asian jasmine, just kind of
Yeah.
like creeping across the floor towards it
That would be nice. Yeah.
with like a fern popping out. I mean, that's just my imagination running
Hmm.
wild because you need low and high elements. And this
Hmm.
Kosomono is trying to play both acts. It's trying to play the role of the high element in the pot and the low element. That's something that I remember young show would tell me with designs on that. And you can hear her
Hmm.
say this on videos that she's done in the past, online instructional videos. It's supposed to be a high and a low element in a
Hmm.
Kosomono. And this is trying to carry the weight of both of those elements. And then it, like Carmen, you were saying, like it kind of just dominates that space a little much.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but yeah, let's talk about this last tree lightly for a moment. It is a
Hmm.
little controversial, but there's a few things I would like to say about it. Then
Hmm.
we'll be wrapping up. But last on this tree, this last one is a silverberry. Um, this one I know had a lot of people back and forth. It's kind of like the last tree that we did on the previous episode, where we
Hmm.
were all kind of indifferent. Me, you, and Mike were all kind of like, kind of back and
Hmm.
forth. This one, I love this tree. I love everything about what's going on. There's just a few things that I would do. I feel like would really up the game on this tree. Um, the accent. This is the one of the first times I saw an accent. It kind of fell short on me. I was just like, I didn't get it. I was a little, I don't know. Like I think it's a little too direct.
Hmm.
I don't know. There was this. I've seen it a couple of times. There's the apple trees. You'll see the crab apple or something,
Yeah.
or like what's the other apple with the really yellow apples? There's that one. It's like a pear
Mm.
apple or something.
Oh,
Uh,
like an Asian pear or a quince.
yeah, or something like that. And then you'll see people. They'll do. The artist will take like a little barrel or a basket and they'll put the apples in there as like a
Mm-hmm.
cute little like, hey, this is a reference to like orchid collecting or whatever, orchard
Hmm.
collecting. And you're like, oh, that's cool. It's on the nose, but it brings the sense of that playfulness that I like to see in bonsai. This one is a little, I don't know. It's
I
like a
think without the
bird.
little berries at the base of the bird, I'd like it better if it was just the bird.
Yeah, because
But
the silverberry is a olive variety
mhm.
plant, and it literally will flower and make little olives. So the
Mhm.
berries, that's why the berries don't make much sense to me.
Yeah.
If this tree was flowering and had some different elements going on, I think it would elevate it. Um, so I want to talk about the strong points in this design. For me personally, the reason why it draws me, that pot, because I've seen the wide lip pots, the lips that come out really far and they're flat, but I've
Hmm.
never seen one that looks like an accordion or a book opening.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy looking, but I love it. And I feel like there's so much more to be had with this. The textural designs, it looks like something you would see in like a regular modern art museum, just sitting there without the tree in it. But if it had the tree in
Hmm.
it, if it was on just a regular pedestal, it would be something more than bonsai. It would be more of like an art piece kind of feel and less bonsai. Because this, it feels like it's approaching bonsai, but it feels like that experimental art piece that's almost bonsai to me.
Hmm.
Um, I think one of my biggest takeaways from this tree that I would like to see, not a takeaway, but one opinion more, is that those branches had a lot more playfulness to them. Like if you wired it and gave it lots of radical movement, or maybe a windswept look, or give it something unpredictable. Because if the pot's unpredictable, the species is, I mean, silverberries are used a lot in bonsai, but silverberries used in like this, like a big, bulky, weird, twisty trunk. And then you get these straight sections, and they're more even further exemplified by the fact that the branches are straight and uninteresting. It just, I feel like there could be more, like make that crown come out and go crazy, have an unconventional silhouette, something that would really make the pot make more sense. That's, I love it because there's so much potential. And then
Mhm.
the stand, it's kind of like we were talking about with that larch earlier with the egg thing. The stand is, this stand's not even close. It's a good stand. It's a beautiful stand, but if you're gonna go bold, go all out. Like put this thing on a big compressed old rusty chemical barrel, like I saw one time at a European show. Put this thing like on a pile of miscellaneous scrap metal pieces, or just something radical, something weird. It's a I know in the past in the show they also had a juniper. I think I told you about this. Did you ever see this tree? Where they had the deadwood on the juniper was painted chrome.
No, I did not see that.
And then they went all the way with it. So they painted this big dramatic piece of deadwood chrome with chrome spray paint. The
Mm.
stand was welded and it was painted hot rod red. And then it had for an accent, like there wasn't a scroll, but there was little glass mirrors, like little dots.
Hmm.
And then I can't remember what the accent was, but it was also just as like unconventional. That's going all the way. This, there's more, in my opinion. So what do you think, Carmen?
Um, hold on a second. So I think that I would caution about going too far with some of these because I like the things that are like one step away. And so there's an unconventional pot. I don't know that I would want to go too much more unconventional with the rest of it because it might go too far. It would really have to depend, I think, on the pieces that we're um, putting it with. But I like the pot and the stand together. The shape of the tree is, when I'm seeing it in silhouette, I like the shape of the tree. I just wish it was 2 or 3 times as big. I feel like the pot is way too big for this tree.
Mm,
And that the tree itself is a little bit underdeveloped. It just needs more time to develop its branching. Um, but I think the pot is really interesting. And I just don't know that this tree is the right one for that pot. But I like I like the pot, I like the stand. Um, maybe even a, because I didn't see it as a storybook, but once I, like, when you mentioned it looked almost like a book opening, I was like, oh, okay. So then you would kind of imagine, this whimsical fairy tale tree, like kind of the perfect tree coming out of it. So I
hmm.
like the idea of, a very classical deciduous shape coming out of it. But I think it would also be cool to do like maybe not a bunjin, but something kind of rough, maybe bunjin-esque. Out of it too would be really neat. Um, but I
Yeah.
think it's a really cool pot, and I like that it's a little bit different, but it's not super different. And I think that I'd love to see more of this kind of thing moving forward.
Yeah. And you mentioned the pop-up, the storybook thing.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about super, like just like going straight art with it, and you wanted to do like the shadow on the wall behind the stand thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then what if there was like another one that had this pot, and it was just a pop-up bonsai, like paper cut pop-up.
Ooh, that would
That
be fun. Pop-up
would,
bonsai. What if you could flip through the book and it was all these different paper
stands and
pop-ups
orientations.
of bonsai?
Yes. That would be
Oh my.
fun, very intricate, but you would have to be a pop-up book engineer to get all that
Yep.
right.
Anybody do pop-up books? I have a collaboration for you.
Yeah. I have a pretty tedious work for you to undertake because we have no
Yeah.
experience in
I
it.
have no experience with pop-up books or making bonsai out of paper, but
But who doesn't love pop-up books? Yeah.
that would be great. I would buy that book.
Yeah. So yeah, let's move it towards the end here. If you've listened this far into the episode, thank you guys so much for listening. After this episode, we're going to move back to our regular scheduled programming. We're going to do probably a Styles, or if we get lucky and we can get one of our guest artists coming up. I know that we have Rob Kinkinski. I might try to get him next. There's also David Easterbrook. Might try to get him as soon as I can as well. Also, we might have the Bonsai Time guys.
Bonsai Time guys.
Yeah, we can. I talked to them not too long ago, and they want to schedule out. It's going to be a little bit further out, but they will be coming in the future.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun time. And so, just to do some shout outs at the end here, if you want to, you can go over, like we said, go over to Patreon / Little Things for Bonsai People, and go become a $5 patron. Get into our Discord. Get your name shouted at the beginning of every episode. And also you can go over to underhillbonsai.com. Go check out my blog posts. I updated my gallery recently, so there's a handful of trees in there that I feel are comparable. They're nice little, displays.
I'm gonna go look at them.
Yeah, don't judge. I'm trying to go through. I'm trying to go through my personal collection and take more of my trees and put them on there for people to see them. And then you can go over to underhillbonsaistore.com. Like I said, the Little Things for Bonsai People t-shirts are there, available for sale and for shipping. And then we're an online nursery. We have our stock and our tools and our wire and our pots. And we just got a bunch of willow pots from South Africa, a very high-end, nice bonsai pot producer that sells his pots at unbelievable prices. They're very, very affordable. Just really great stuff over there. And then you can go over to Instagram and check out Underhill Bonsai and see what we got offerings over there. I know we have some workshops I'm trying to gear up for really soon here in Louisiana. If you're in Louisiana or in the Gulf Coast area, you can come check that out. And also, I'm looking to book out stuff for next year. So if there's bonsai clubs, or if you guys are looking for private work, I do that in the Gulf Coast area. That's going to be the southeast of the United States zone. It's going to be easiest on my life. But for Carmen, go check out her stuff at.
You can find me on Instagram at Becoming Bonsai. I'm also on the Facebook. You can check out the Facebooks. You can check out my teacher, Michael Hagedorn's work at crataegus.com. And check out the National Women's Bonsai Group, the Purple Pot Society, at thepurplepotsociety.org. We're also on Instagram and Facebook as well.
Yep.
And you know what? I should probably throw this out there.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to be. Oh, I was just going to say I've got about a year left in my apprenticeship, so I guess I could technically start looking at booking some stuff for 2025. So yeah, I got to get a website set up or something so that people can do that. But yeah, if you want to chat about workshops, demos, presentations, whatever, you can shoot me a message through Facebook or Instagram.
Yep. And you did mention that Michael has the intensives, and you can go over to cartegus.com and you can sign up there, I'm assuming.
Yeah, shoot Michael an email. If you go under the offerings, seasonals are under there. And I don't know if we're booked for fall yet, but we've got fall coming up in October. And then next year we have 2 or 3 winter sessions, 2 springs, 2 summers, and then 2 falls. So sign up now.
I've done a seasonal over there. It's awesome. It's definitely worth going out and seeing the collection. If you've never seen Michael's collection before, it's overwhelming. And then he puts a tree in front of you and he's like, all right, you get to work on this one. And you're just like,
okay. All right.
Yeah. But it's a really great immersion. It'll really up your game. And then I know that we had some takes in the for the patrons over at the Discord. There's the cutting challenge. I did not forget about the cutting challenge.
I did.
So we're going to do some more posts in there. We're going to look at our trees and see what progress we've made so far. So for our patrons, go check it out. We'll go into the cutting challenge. I'll post some stuff. Probably the release of this episode, you'll see a little bit of activity in there, and I'll be asking for some shout outs for our patrons to do some updates and kind of move that push that ball up the hill a little bit with the cutting challenge. So, but yeah, it's always fun talking about bonsai and critiquing them. This has been great. So we will catch you guys on the flippy side. Is that how you say it?
The flippity flop.
The flippity flop. Thank you.
Get you on the flippity flop.
Catch you on the flip side. All right.